Hire a felon, get a tax break. That's the plan being proposed in San Francisco as a way to give ex-cons a better chance to find work. But is this a smart way to give away taxpayer dollars? Our panel, Liz McDonald, Sally Cohn, Lenore Hawkins, and Francis Newton. Boy, we got a full crowd. Sally, you think this is going to save the city some money?
Yeah, there's no question. I mean, look, economically, they've shown that if you get a job after prison, you're less likely to reoffend, and the cost to the city of the tax break is less than the cost for reincarcerating people. But the larger issue is government every day creates incentives for business and what we want them to do. Right now, we incentivize businesses to give away bloated CEO packages and to invest in fossil fuels, and instead we're going to invest in them to hire unemployed and poor people.
But EMAC, we just heard about one of those investments in terms of a tax incentive that was given to Solyndra at the top of the show. So they make mistakes sometimes. Is this a mistake?
That's a good question. I mean, Sally makes a great point about, reincarceration costs to taxpayers. But you got to say to yourself, what about the Occupy Wall Street students? Why don't we get a tax break for them to get a job? So what are you going to do? You're going to rob a bank and get a job? That's the joke. But I'll tell you something. This program has been offered by Republicans too. There was an idea in the 80s as well. It's a voluntary program. The prisons are overcrowded in California. But the question is, will states be able to send their own felons to San Francisco?
That's a good question. Lenore, we just had Scott McNeely on, the founder of Sun Microsystems. He left California. He's gone to Colorado because he said there's so many crazy rules. Maybe there's some substance to this. I don't know. I don't think there is. On the surface of it, it looks bad to me. But this is a kind of rule that sends people like Scott McNeely out of the state.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And it doesn't get to the root cause of the problem. The problem is that we have an overly large, over-encompassing, thus overly burdened criminal justice system. Our prison population is the largest in the world, both in absolute numbers and as a percentage of the population. There's over 4,000 federal laws across over 27,000 pages. A congressional legal team tried to at one point go through and actually count how many infractions were listed on the books, and they finally gave up.
Yeah.
So let me get this straight. A team of legal experts can't get their arms around the criminal code, but the average American is supposed to.
Francis, you know what I would prefer to see rather than a tax credit for ex-cons or for people who hire them is an extra tax credit for people who hire vets. What about that? I mean, focus our attention on the people who are doing something positive for this world.
Exactly. I think if we're going to give tax credits, we should give tax credits for companies who hire willing and able workers. They certainly have a shortage of jobs out there for them. You can't expect these corporations to bring us out of this recession / possible depression, hiring workers who are underqualified and becoming more cost effective. I mean, this is sort of, it's another example of robbing Peter to pay Paul. It just doesn't really work. The other thing is not all criminals are created equally. Some will rehabilitate and some will not. You have federal safety laws requiring background checks, and now the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is now talking about discrimination. And this is the kind of uncertainty in the corporate environment that keeps people going,
Sally?
What the heck are we going to do?
The point was made earlier. We have record criminalization, record in prison record number of people incarcerated, increasingly over nonviolent offenses. These aren't necessarily bad people. These are people who've made mistakes. And in the United States of America, we believe in redemption and giving people second chances. Now, the second point is
they may not be the most qualified for the job,
but that's the point. Isn't you have to hire them? It's not a mandate.
Yeah, it's voluntary.
It's voluntary.
And Philadelphia says it works with crime prevention. But the irony here is that some state government jobs may not be allowed to be given to ex-cons and felons. So that's the irony.
Lenore, the problem was, and EMAC knows this very well, but Lenore, the fact is that whenever we try to use tax policy in order to affect social change of some, we tend to get into problems. We have all these perverse incentives, no?
Yes, the tax code is not the place to address social problems. We have this overburdensome criminal code because our politicians have used criminalization as a way to garner headlines.
Well, what do you do?
What do you do
with an ex-con what do you do with an ex-con?
But you agree that we shouldn't be using the tax code to deal with this.
I'm sick and tired of social engineering that is happening through the tax code. But what do you do with that ex-con, that ex-felon, who will commit a crime again if he doesn't have a job?
Exactly, and it is more cost-effective to get them a job. And the second larger point is, if you don't believe in social engineering in tax code, then again, why do we give tax breaks to incentivize corporations to give
Who says that's a good
packages
idea?
to their
I'm not in
CEOs?
favor of Solyndra.
Well, but so
I don't
I'm
agree
not
with
talking
that
about
either.
I'm talking about deductions
Or corporate
for
tax
CEO
breaks.
Or corporate tax
on.
breaks. I mean, let's
No, I
just
hear
get
you.
rid of all the breaks and lower the tax rates for everybody. Work towards a flat system. Thank you, gang. Well, trying to elbow their way into the chicken wing title.